Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're really going deep, deeper than usual, I guess you could say.
Deeper than the deep dives.
Yeah, exactly. This time we're taking a look at the 50 Shades Trilogy.
Oh, wow.
And you've provided excerpts from all three books.
All three. Okay.
50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed.
Okay.
So we're going to try to take a look at the entire arc of the relationship between Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey.
Wow. That's a big undertaking.
It is a big undertaking, and I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to be taking a look at, how wealth, power, and control influence their connection.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously this is a fictional couple.
Yeah.
But their story really does provide a good lens for us to look at some of the dynamics that we see in real relationships and how they can play out.
Yeah, for sure.
So we can ask questions like, how do these power imbalances end up impacting intimacy?
Right.
What are some subtle signs of possessiveness and control? And also, the age-old question, how do past experiences impact how we approach love and relationships?
Exactly. And I think one of the best places to start with that is at the very beginning.
Okay.
So that very first encounter that Anastasia has with Christian.
That first interview.
Yeah, that first interview, I was so struck by her reaction to him. It was very visceral.
Yeah.
She's very clearly drawn to him, but there's something underneath there. There's like a tension that she can't quite, put her finger on.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is how the text really does a good job of immediately establishing this contrast between their personalities.
Yeah.
Right away, we see that Christian is extremely confident.
Yeah.
Very successful.
Oh, yeah.
He's self-assured.
Yeah. And he even mentions in that interview that he is very good at judging people and that he knows how to incentivize them to do what he wants.
Exactly.
Which is a little creepy.
Yeah, it is a little bit creepy when you think about it.
Yeah, especially in a first interview.
Yeah, that's not really something you want to hear from a potential employer. Or, well, I guess he's not her employer, but someone that you're interviewing with.
Exactly. And in contrast to that, Anastasia is presented as much more hesitant, right?
Yeah, she's less sure of herself for sure.
Yeah, and I think that difference in their personalities really sets the stage for how their relationship is going to unfold.
Yeah, I think that's a really great observation because it does set up that power dynamic.
Totally. And there's even that little detail where Anastasia sort of observes that he doesn't suffer fools gladly.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
Which I thought was so interesting.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to that coldness.
Yeah.
Almost like that sense of always being in control that he has, even in casual conversation.
Absolutely.
So there's a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah, for sure.
That their personalities might clash at some point.
Totally. And that kind of leads us into another really interesting encounter, which is that first coffee date. That they have. It seems very innocent on the surface.
Right.
But even there, you can see these like little ways that Christian is already starting to take control.
Yes.
So, for example, he doesn't even ask.
He just tells his driver.
He just tells his driver to take her friends home so that he can have her all to himself.
Right. And I think it really is a crucial scene because it reveals so much about how Christian exerts control, even in these like seemingly ordinary settings.
Yes.
Like, it's not even a question for him.
Yeah.
He just dictates what's going to happen.
And Anastasia kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, she does. And I think that speaks to her internal conflict, right? She is flattered by his attention, but she's also a little uneasy about his blatant disregard for her plans.
Right.
He doesn't even really consider that she might have wanted to spend more time with her friends.
Yeah. It's just about what he wants.
Exactly. And I think that really demonstrates that power imbalance.
For sure.
That's already present in the relationship from the very beginning.
Yeah, and there's also that interesting interaction with the photographer, Jose.
Oh, yeah.
Who very clearly disapproves of Christian.
Oh, he does not like Christian.
At all.
No, he does not. And it's interesting because it's a really small interaction, but it speaks volumes, I think, about the possessiveness that we see later on in the book.
Totally.
So, even though they're not even really in a relationship at this point, Christian's reaction to Jose reveals that he already wants to have Anastasia in his orbit.
Yeah.
Exclusively.
Right. He doesn't want to share her attention.
Exactly. And that desire for exclusivity becomes a major theme in their relationship.
Yeah. And it's almost like he's marking his territory or something like that.
It really is. Yeah. It's like a subtle power play.
Yeah. And then, of course, we can't talk about power dynamics without talking about the infamous contract.
Oh, yes. The contract.
It was introduced fairly early on in the first book.
I think that's when the readers really understand what they're getting into.
Yes, exactly. So Christian presents Anastasia with this incredibly detailed document.
Oh my goodness, yes. It is very detailed.
It lays out all of the terms of their relationship.
Yes, very specifically.
Very specifically. And it's definitely not your typical romantic agreement.
Right? Yeah. No. It's more like a business negotiation than anything else.
Yeah. It's like a legal document that's laying out, the rules and the rewards and the punishments. Of this dominant submissive dynamic that they're going to be engaging in.
And I think the contract is really the ultimate manifestation of that power imbalance between them.
Yeah.
Right. It spells out in black and white Christian's expectations for complete control and obedience from Anastasia.
It even says that he can use her body as he sees fit.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense clause.
Yeah.
And it forces us to ask the question, can true consent really exist within such a rigid dynamic?
Especially with the punishments that are laid out?
Yes, exactly. The physical punishments.
And I think Anastasia is very clearly hesitant.
She is.
About this whole thing. She's obviously intrigued by Christian.
She is drawn to him.
But she is deeply apprehensive about what this contract actually means.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note that she does try to push back.
She does.
Against some of the aspects of the contract that she finds the most concerning.
Yeah.
She questions, what she's getting out of this arrangement.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to voice her concerns.
Right.
And I think that shows that even though she is drawn to Christian's power, she's not willing to completely surrender her own agency.
Right. And that's, I think, what makes it so compelling for a lot of readers is that even though he's trying to control her so much, she's not just some wilting flower.
Right.
She's actually got some backbone and she's going to
try to. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next 2 books.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is a great place to leave it for now.
Sounds good.
And we'll get it up in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Like, Anastasia isn't just completely afraid of this whole thing.
Right.
She's obviously apprehensive.
Yeah.
But there's also this growing curiosity.
Right.
This, desire to explore this world that Christian's introducing her to.
Totally.
So, it begs the question.
Yeah.
Can that exploration truly be considered consensual?
Right.
When it's happening within such a rigid power dynamic?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think it becomes even more complex when you look at the fact that they both have
past trauma.
Yeah, they both have past traumas that they're bringing into this relationship.
Exactly. And I think Christian's past is particularly relevant here.
Yeah, he talks about his childhood experiences.
Yeah, with the crack whore pimp, as he describes it.
Right. It's
pretty intense.
Yeah. It's a very intense way of describing it.
And he even says that he's haunted by nightmares. Yeah. He's clearly carrying a lot of baggage from his past.
And he has this constant fear of abandonment, which I think is really interesting.
I think that's a key point because that fear of abandonment really drives his need to control every aspect of his life.
Everything.
Especially his relationships.
Right, like the contract and all the rules and even...
Yeah, his whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's all about creating this sense of order and predictability.
Because he feels like he can't control anything else.
Exactly. He craves that feeling of control because the world has felt so unpredictable and dangerous to him in the past.
And submission for him isn't just a preference.
Right.
It's almost like a coping mechanism.
A way to feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's interesting to contrast that with Anastasia's perspective.
Yes, because
she's coming from a very different place.
Yeah, she wants something completely different.
She does. She wants a connection that goes beyond the confines of that contract.
Yeah, she wants to be her authentic self.
Express her desires openly and feel like an equal partner.
And I think that's where the fundamental clash of needs really emerges in their relationship.
Totally. And I think we see that.
In so many ways.
Yeah, we see that in so many ways. Like, do you remember the scene?
Oh, yeah, where he spanks her for rolling her eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very
clear example.
It's a very stark reminder that defying his authority has consequences.
Exactly.
But then moments later, he's bathing her all tenderly.
Yeah.
Talking about how he wants to earn her trust.
Right.
So it's this constant back and forth.
Yeah, it's almost like he's two different people sometimes.
He really is. And it makes you wonder if he even recognizes the contradiction in his own behavior.
Right. And Anastasia's just trying to figure out if it's even possible.
Yeah. Can she love him unconditionally?
Right.
While also pushing back against these dominant tendencies.
Yeah, and I think that that's the central tension that drives the entire narrative. Absolutely. Yeah. You see that play out as Anastasia tests the boundaries.
Yes.
Right. She challenges his limits, and he responds in a variety of ways, sometimes with possessiveness.
Anger.
Yeah. Sometimes with vulnerability, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
And then we had the appearance of Layla.
Oh, yeah.
His ex-submissive.
Oh, yeah.
Who shows up at Anastasia's apartment.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. And she's clearly still fixated on Christian.
Oh, yeah.
And that just triggers this wave of insecurity and jealousy.
In Anastasia,
right?
Oh, absolutely.
And what I find so interesting about that scene is that it reveals the instability of Christian's past relationships.
Yes, like all of his relationships have ended badly.
Yeah, exactly. Like Layla is a walking reminder that his need for control often leads to these intense but short-lived relationships that end in heartbreak.
And he creates these bonds, but they're all built on this
very unequal
footing.
They inevitably crumble.
Yeah. And his reaction to it is so telling.
It is.
Furious.
He's not just furious at Layla.
Right.
He's furious at the situation itself.
Yeah, like he's realizing
his past.
His past is catching up with him.
Exactly.
And it's threatening this new connection.
This fragile connection that he's building with Anastasia.
And I think for the first time, he's kind of forced to confront the consequences of his actions.
Right. He has to see how his patterns of behavior have hurt other people.
Yeah.
And could potentially damage his relationship with Anastasia.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's around this time that we start to see a shift in their dynamic.
A little bit, yeah.
So he offers to extend the contract for a year. But he also suggests,
which is interesting,
giving Anastasia more control. Over certain aspects of it.
Yeah, so it's like a small concession.
It's a small step, but it does signal that he's at least willing to consider a more balanced dynamic.
And I think it's not a coincidence that this shift happens.
Yeah.
Right around the same time that Christian starts to open up about his past trauma.
Right. He's letting her in a little bit.
He's taking a huge risk by sharing these deep vulnerabilities with her.
Yeah.
He's letting her see him in a new light.
And that vulnerability, I think, allows Anastasia to see him as more than just this dominant figure.
Right. She starts to understand him as a complex individual who's capable of love and growth.
Right. And it's a turning point for their relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Where that power dynamic starts to soften just a little.
It does. And it paves the way for a more mature expression of love.
Yes.
Do you remember that scene where he takes her flying?
In the helicopter. Yeah.
And he says, "We've chased the dawn, Anastasia.
Now the dusk."
Yeah, now the dusk. It's such a romantic gesture.
He's very romantic.
But it also symbolizes a shift in their relationship. They're moving away from that control and submission towards something that feels more like a shared experience.
Yeah, more like partners.
Yeah, like partners.
But that doesn't mean that all the power imbalances magically disappear.
Of course not. It's a process.
Yeah.
And there are definitely moments where Christian kind of reverts back.
Yeah, for sure.
To his old patterns.
Like when he buys her the car without even asking her.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a prime example of...
It triggers her all over again.
Yeah, it really does.
It does.
And it reinforces that need that she has for
equality.
The relationship.
And I think it just illustrates how ingrained
deeply in
those behaviors can be.
Yeah, even when we're trying to change.
Even when we're actively trying to change.
Unlearning those patterns takes time.
It does.
And there are going to be missteps along the way.
And it's not just Christian who's working through things.
It's a good point.
Anastasia also has to confront her own insecurities.
Yeah, she has to deal with those tendencies to be drawn to his dominance.
Even though she wants equality.
Even though she craves that equality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really complex.
It is. It reminds us that relationships are a two-way street.
Yes.
Both people have to acknowledge their own contributions.
To the dynamic.
Yeah, to the dynamic, both the good and the bad.
And this is illustrated even more.
Yeah.
When they go to the charity ball together.
Yeah.
Christian ends up bidding this exorbitant amount of money just to dance with her.
It's a very public display.
Very public.
Of his possessiveness.
Of his wealth and his possessiveness.
Yeah, and it attracts a lot of attention. It sparks a lot of gossip.
Oh, for sure.
But I think more importantly, it shows this side of Christian that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, this competitive nature.
Yeah, and his willingness to use his wealth.
To get what he wants.
To get what he wants, yeah.
Yeah, he's not afraid to flaunt it.
And it makes you wonder how that need to dominate might play out in a long-term relationship.
And then poor Anastasia, she also has this very awkward encounter with Elena, Christian's former dominant.
Elena is a piece of work.
She is.
She tries to manipulate Anastasia.
Oh, yeah, she tries to intimidate her.
Yeah, and it's clear that she still holds a certain amount of power over Christian.
And Elena's presence is almost like a
shadow?
Yeah, like a shadow from the past.
Yeah, from his past.
Reminding us of...
You have those toxic relationships that he used to be entangled in.
And her attempt to undermine his connection with Anastasia just shows the lasting power of those experiences. And Christian's reaction is so intense.
Oh, he is not happy.
Oh, he's furious with Elena.
Yeah, and he's fiercely protective of Anastasia.
Very protective.
You can tell that he's determined to move on. From that chapter of his life.
But then, just when it seems like they're making progress, things take a very dramatic turn.
Oh, yeah.
Layla breaks into Christian's apartment with a gun.
With a gun.
It's terrifying.
It's a terrifying scene, and it triggers
a full-blown panic attack in Anastasia.
Yeah, she is understandably freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a stark reminder of the lasting impact of trauma, not just for Christian, but for Anastasia as well.
Yeah, it shatters their newfound sense of security, and it makes you wonder, can they really build a life together?
Right.
When the past keeps intruding.
In such a terrifying way.
In such a scary way.
And Christian's response is really interesting, too.
Yeah, he's so conflicted.
He's concerned for Anastasia's safety.
Yeah.
But he's also frustrated by her refusal to just leave the apartment.
Even when her life is in danger.
Yeah, and it really reveals that conflict within him between his love for Anastasia and his need to control every situation.
Yeah. He wants to protect her, but he also wants to control her.
And he doesn't understand why she won't just obey his commands.
Yeah, and I think that this event really has a profound impact on their relationship.
Yeah, it's a turning point.
It is a turning point.
Because in the aftermath of this event, Christian finally opens up.
Yeah.
He tells her everything.
About his most painful childhood experiences.
About the abuse and the neglect.
Yeah, he reveals the roots of his 50 Shades.
And it's a very raw and emotional confession.
It is, and it's a pivotal moment in their journey.
Yeah.
Because by sharing his deepest vulnerabilities with her, he's taking a leap of faith.
He is?
He's trusting her with the most fragile parts of himself.
Yeah, her response is so powerful.
It really is.
She doesn't shy away from his pain.
She embraces it.
She embraces it.
She holds him.
Yeah.
She comforts him.
She reassures him.
She reassures him that she's not like those women who hurt him in the past.
And it's this beautiful moment of genuine connection.
It really is.
Where you can see the empathy.
Yeah, and that empathy transcends
the power dynamic.
Yeah, the power dynamic that has defined their relationship up to this point.
And they're really seeing each other as human beings for the first time.
Flaws and all.
Yeah, and in the wake of this revelation,
he proposes marriage. He offers her this life of security and stability.
But she's hesitant.
Oh, she is so hesitant.
She's tempted by the offer.
Yeah.
But she's still struggling with her desire for a more balanced relationship.
Yeah, where she's not just his submissive. Right. She wants to be his partner.
His equal partner.
And I think the marriage proposal really brings us to the central question that this entire series is grappling with.
Which is, can two people from such different worlds.
With such different baggage.
Yeah, with such different baggage.
Can they really bridge that gap and build a healthy, sustainable partnership?
Can love truly conquer their demons?
Or will their past ultimately pull them apart?
Yeah, it is the question.
And that is a question that we will continue to explore as we head into the final part of our deep dive. That proposal from Christian really does kind of just hang there, doesn't it?
It does. It's a big moment for Anastasia.
It is. She has a huge decision to make.
A life-changing decision, really.
Yeah. Does she step into this life with Christian that is both incredibly alluring?
Right. Very tempting.
But also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, there's a lot of darkness there.
Yeah.
A lot of unknowns.
And I think it forces both of them to really confront what they want.
Yeah, what are their deepest fears? What are their desires?
Christian is really wrestling with this need to control.
Yeah, can he trust her enough?
To be his equal.
To be his equal, not just his submissive.
And Anastasia is trying to figure out Can she be independent?
Can she have both?
Can she have both? And then there's all these gifts.
Oh, yeah, all the extravagant gifts.
Like the car.
The publishing company. It's like he's trying to buy her love.
He is.
Which kind of backfires.
It totally backfired.
It highlights how differently they view love and affection.
Right. He comes from this world.
Of wealth and power.
Where, love equals things.
Material possessions.
But she wants a deeper connection. She wants respect.
Emotional connection.
Yeah. And she's not afraid to tell him that.
No, she's not.
She pushes back when he tries to control her.
And their arguments can get pretty heated.
Yeah.
But I actually see that as a positive thing.
Me too.
It shows that they're communicating. They're trying to understand each other's perspective.
Even if it gets messy.
Exactly.
Or if there's that one line that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah, what was it?
Where she says, I don't want to be your submissive. I want to be your equal.
That's such a powerful statement.
It is.
Because it really gets to the heart of their struggle.
Yeah. She wants to be on the same level.
And it's fascinating because the power dynamic between them isn't static.
No, it's
shifts as they negotiate boundaries.
Their desires, their expectations.
Yeah, and there are moments where Christian softens.
Yeah.
He shows a willingness to compromise.
He does, and then there are other times when Anastasia takes control.
She steps into her power.
And demands to be heard.
And then we have the whole situation with Jack Hyde.
Oh, God, Jack Hyde.
Anastasia's boss.
Yeah.
Who tries to assault her.
It's terrifying.
And Christian's reaction is explosive.
Oh my God, he goes crazy.
He fires Hyde. He wipes Anastasia's emails.
Yeah, he's like a vigilante.
He's going into full protector mode.
Yeah.
And I think it reveals a lot about his character.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a prime example of his need to control.
To dominate.
Yeah. And he sees Hyde as a threat.
Anyone is a threat.
Yeah, anyone who might
take her away from him
or try to exert power over her.
And it's like he can't stand the thought of anyone else having power over her.
It's possessive.
Yeah, it is.
It's definitely possessive.
Which is, on the surface, it seems kind of romantic.
Right. The whole knight in shining armor thing.
But it's also a little bit creepy.
A little creepy.
It speaks to his insecurity.
Yeah.
His fear of losing her.
Yeah, and I think that's something that he has to work through.
For sure.
If he wants to have a healthy relationship with her. He needs to learn to let go of some of that control.
Yeah.
And trust her.
And it puts Anastasia in a tough spot.
It does.
Because she appreciates his protection.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want him to interfere.
She wants to be able to handle her own problems.
Yeah, she wants to be independent.
To prove that she's capable.
Yeah.
And I think this is a dilemma that we often see in relationships with these power imbalances.
Yeah. How do you balance the need for support
with the desire for autonomy?
And it all comes to a head when she finally confronts him.
Yeah, about his past.
About Elena.
She wants answers.
Yeah.
And she sees his pain.
She does.
She sees the scars that have shaped his behavior.
And he's so vulnerable in that moment.
He's opening himself up to her in a way that he never has before.
He's letting go.
He's letting go of that control.
Trusting her
with the most fragile parts of himself.
And her response is so beautiful.
It is. She responds with empathy and compassion. She sees him not just as this dominant figure,
right,
but as a wounded person.
Yeah, and her love for him grows.
Deepens.
It deepens, and I think she finally understands the complexities of his 50 Shades.
Right.
And she chooses to love him not in spite of them,
but because of them.
And there's a shift in their dynamic.
It's palpable.
Yeah, they start communicating more openly.
Negotiating their desires, their boundaries.
With respect.
With a sense of equality.
And it's not perfect.
Of course not.
But there's an evolution.
There's growth.
And that shift is also reflected in their intimacy.
Yeah, becomes less about control and submission.
And more about exploration.
Pleasure, mutual satisfaction.
Christian learns to be more attentive.
To Anastasia's needs.
Yeah, and she becomes more confident.
In expressing her desires.
Yeah.
So it's a subtle change, but it's significant.
Yeah, it shows that their trust is growing.
They're moving beyond those roles that define their relationship in the beginning.
Yeah.
And discovering a deeper connection.
But it's not all smooth sailing from there.
No, of course not.
They still face challenges.
Christian's past continues to haunt him.
Anastasia has to learn to navigate his world.
Yeah, but they choose to face those challenges together.
Yeah, as partners.
And I think that's ultimately what makes their story so compelling.
It's a reminder that love is never simple.
No, it's messy.
And even in its most unconventional forms, love can be beautiful.
And challenging. And I think it invites us to reflect on our own experiences.
Absolutely. How do we navigate power imbalances in our own relationships?
How do we communicate our needs?
How do we choose to love?
And be loved.
Wow. Well, that was quite a deep dive.
It was, wasn't it?
It was. I think we just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
There is, but we have to leave it there for today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into 50 Shades.
It was a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive, where we'll be exploring a brand new topic